This video is for homework number 32, which is due on Friday the 12th. All right, so the first question that we're going to do is number 1. And if you don't have a graphing calculator at home, then there are some other options. One of them is to use an online calculator. And so what I've done is I've just Googled online graphing calculator. And if you click this first one that says Meta Calculator, it'll bring you to this website, and we specifically want a graphing calculator. So I'm going to click graphing calculator. So if I go to the question, it says when the system of equations y plus 2x equals x squared and y equals x is graphed on a set of axes, what is the total number of points of intersection? Now before we graph anything, we have to get y by itself. So for this first equation, I need to get rid of this plus 2x. So I'm going to minus 2x from both sides. And when I do that on the right-hand side, those aren't like terms. So I'm just going to be left with y equals x squared minus 2x. And then I have my y equals x. So those are the two graphs I'm going to graph on my calculator. So if I look at that and I go to this calculator, the first thing I'm going to do is type in that first equation. So here's my calculator screen over here. And I know it's different, so it's a little bit hard to use, but you'll find x squared, and then I want to do minus 2x. Okay, and we're good there for this one. And then the second one is just y equals x, so I can just write x. And then if I go up here, or I go down to the bottom, it says graph. So I'm going to hit graph, and it's going to load my graph. And I can click and drag it so I can see in the middle. And I want to graph this on my graph over here. So I need some points that I can graph. And notice the line. Let's do that first because it's the easy one. So if I go to table, it asks me which one do I want the table of. Let's do y equals x. And I get a table, and I just need to pick 2 points, realistically. So I can do 0, 0. So on my graph over here, I'm going to graph the point 0, 0. And I can pick, I don't know, 4, 4. So I can go over here and I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I can draw a line that connects those two. Okay, and remember we label our lines, so I'm going to label this y equals x. Now I need to do the other one. So when I go to my graph, I want to do this parabola. Oops, I lost my equation. I don't want y equals x. I want y equals x squared minus 2x. Go back to graph. All right, so now my parabola. And see how it makes this U? Well, it actually has some symmetry. Like if I drew a line right down the middle, the left and the right side would match. And so I have this matching symmetry here. So if I go to my table, and this time I want to see this parabola for my table, I'm trying to find that symmetry. And that happens right here around 1, negative 1. See how it goes 0, negative 1, 0, and then 3 and 3. So that's what I'm going to graph. So I'm going to graph negative 1, 3. So negative 1, 3. Then I'm going to graph, then I'm going to graph 0, 0. Then I'm going to graph 1, negative 1, 1, negative 1. And then it matches, it goes back up. So then the next one is 2, 0. And then 3, 3. And so I have this parabola that I can graph. You're going to have to bear with me because I'm doing this with a mouse. And I can label this parabola y plus 2x equals x squared. But what it's really asking me is for the total number of points of intersection, and in this case it crosses twice. The next question we're going to do is we're going to skip down to number 3. And number 3 says a regular polygon has an exterior angle that measures 45 degrees. How many sides does the polygon have? Well, I know that the sum of the exterior angles is 360 degrees. So if I know that each one is 45 and I want to know how many sides it is, I'm going to take that sum and I'm going to divide by 45. And that should be all you need to do, and you'll figure out how many sides it has. And then number 4, if the surface area of a sphere, so we need the surface area of a sphere formula. And depending on when you are working on this homework, you might have it in the yellow packet, but if you're doing this before, if you're doing this, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, then it's in your notes, but I'll be nice and I'll give it to you. It's surface area equals 4 pi r squared. So if I were plugging this in, if I know the surface area, then I would say that 144 pi equals 4 pi r squared. And then I could solve to get r by itself, and once I know the radius, be careful, it's asking for the diameter. All right, we're going to skip a little bit. I think we can handle most of the other ones. They're review of circle stuff. And we're going to go to number 9. And number 9, it tells me the endpoints of the diameter. So it says that I have 2, 0, and I have 2, -8. And those are the endpoints of the diameter of my circle. Now, when I have a circle, there's 2 things I need, the center and the radius. And if I know the center and the radius, then I know the equation of my circle. So to find the center, well, I need the midpoint. So what that means is it's average of the x's, average of the y's. So I'm going to add my x's up. 2 plus 2. And I'm going to divide by 2 because there's 2 of them. And that's how you find an average. For my y's, I'm going to add them up. 0 plus -8. And I'm going to divide by 2 because there's 2 of them. And when I do that, I get a center of 2, -4. Which makes sense in my picture, 2, -4. That looks close. Now, what that means is in my equation, I'm going to do the opposite. -2 and +4. -2, +4. Not that one. -2, +4. Not that one. So it's either 1 or 3. Now, for the next part, I got to find the radius. Well, if my center is 2, -4, and I know the point 2, 0 is on my circle, then I need to find the distance between those 2 points. So do your distance formula, find your radius as a number, and then remember when you plug it into the equation, you square that number. Number 10 is the next one, and again, depending on when you're doing this homework assignment, this might have been a long time ago that we did this, okay? But if you're doing it later in the week, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, this might be more familiar because we would have gone over it on Tuesday. So it says the 3 medians of a triangle intersect at one point. So if I have a triangle, well, I know a median, that connects the vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. Vertex to the midpoint, vertex to the midpoint. And when it does that, it actually creates a 2-to-1 ratio. And that's kind of hard to see. Let's do it in purple. A 2-to-1. So some examples of things that are 2-to-1. 2-to-1, 4-to-2, 12-to-6. Those are all examples of things that are in a ratio of 2-to-1. So I want which one of these answers is in a ratio of 2-to-1, and that will be your answer for number 10. For number 11, what it means here in this box is it wants you to put congruent symbols. So for example, if triangle XYV is congruent to triangle TSV, well then that means lots of things. Like it means this piece, XY, which are the first 2 letters, matches with this one, which is TS, which are the first 2 letters. So there's one congruent symbol that's in my picture. Well, there's 2 more sides that match up, and there's 3 angles that match up. So you need to mark those in your picture. Remember, angles like this angle matches with this angle. Okay? So you need to add those additional things and then figure out which statement is correct. All right, then we're going to skip a little again, and the next one that we're going to do together is number 15. And number 15 says, in right triangle ABC, shown in the diagram below, altitude BD is drawn to hypotenuse AC. CD is 12, AD is 3. What's the length of AB in simplest radical form? So I'm going to put an X there because I don't know what that is. It's a right triangle with a altitude, so I'm going to draw big, medium, oops, line that back up right, medium, and small. Here, let's do them really big, really medium, and small. All right. So I'm going to label my triangles. So for the big triangle, my right angle is at B. And then BC is longer, so I'm going to put BC and BA. For my medium triangle, my right angle is at D, and DC is longer, so I'm going to put DC and DB. And for my small triangle, my right angle is at D, that's at D, and DB is longer than DA. And now I'm going to fill in what I know. Well, I know that DA is 3, so wherever I see a DA, I'm going to put a 3. I know that DC is 12, so wherever I see a DC, I'm going to put a 12. I don't know AB, so wherever there's an AB, that's an X. Now, I don't have any two triangles that match, so I need something else. Like, I could figure out this. If this part's 3 and this part's 12, then the whole thing is 15. So I can say that AC is 15. And now I have big triangle and little triangle that match, and I'm not using medium triangle. So I can set up a proportion like X over 3 equals 15 over X. And I can cross multiply and solve. Just make sure that you put it in simplest radical form. If you're working on number 33 and you're stuck, we haven't done graphing locus. We will do that on Monday. So just wait. I think after Monday you'll be able to handle it. Number 14 is another one where if you need a graphing calculator, again, I just Googled graphing calculator. And I got this graphing calculator to come up, the meta calculator. There's other ones too, so if you don't like this one, you certainly can click on one of the other ones that come up when you Google it, and you can find one that'll work so you can graph that. Okay, the logic stuff, look back in your notes for inverse, converse, contrapositive, logically equivalent. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me at some point this week before it's due date on Friday. Remember, this is your last homework, so make sure that it's a good one.